Hey guys, my name's Doug with Infotainment.com. Today we're in the 2013 to 2017 Dodge SRT Viper. So I want to show you guys a little bit about the radios in these particular vehicles. The base radio is what they call the RA3. That is a non-navigation radio. It does not have HD radio, and it obviously does not have NAV. The upgraded vehicles come with the RA4 option code, which is the 8.4 inch radio with embedded navigation and with HD radio. So the navigation's really cool. In this particular vehicle, we do have the RA4 installed. You notice it has all the traditional features a NAV system has, where you can view your map inside and out, 3D, 2D maps. And then where to, you can go to an address, recent places, set your home address, points of interest, so on and so forth. A really cool system here for your Viper. Now, what we offer here at Infotainment is we actually now offer the latest and greatest 8.4 inch system. This is the UAQ option code. Now, this was never even intended for the Viper, but here at Infotainment.com, we make it work. What's great about this UAQ radio is it's pre-programmed to plug and play, and it's a direct replacement for your radio. This is 100% factory, okay? This is gonna give you built-in GPS, HD radio. It also has Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. This is 100% factory Mopar part, and we did program and we did develop a kit to make this possible for the 13 to 17 Viper. So without further ado, we'll get started with the installation on this. But I also want to let you guys know, those of you who have the RA3 option code, you do have the option to go to this system, which is the RA4, and you have the option to go to the UAQ with built-in GPS navigation and Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. All right guys, so what we're gonna do here is we're actually in the GTS version of the Viper here. The base model SRT Vipers are essentially the exact same way as far as disassembly. I'm going to show you guys how to take out the center bezel here, the center console here. But the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to remove this grab bar. Now what you need to do is remove the right side first, which is just held in with retaining clips. You can just come in and kind of pop it out of place. There will be 2 screws here that you'll need to remove the left side. Okay, these 2 here. So when you remove those 2 screws, you'll get access to these 2 torque screws. Remove these 2 screws, and then this little handle here comes out. Now throughout the rest of this video, we went ahead and removed the screws just to speed it along. So we'll get started. The next thing you're going to do is pull back on this panel here. It's got a retaining clip that holds it in, and that allows you to pull this bracket out. All right, up here where the defrost is, you're going to want to use a pry tool or a screwdriver, flathead screwdriver, to lift this up. You can remove it completely, or you can get it up just enough to where you can access the 2 screws that hold this bezel in place. So you have to get kind of a tight screwdriver in here, one here and one here. Once you remove those 2 screws, that'll free up the top part of this bezel here. Now to fully release this bezel here, there's a screw that's actually driven right back in here. It actually goes through this bracket, it goes through the bezel, and then it goes into the console here. So you actually have to get this bolt out that's hidden back here on both sides. You have to free up this, and on the other side, you'll have to free that up by removing 1 or 2 screws from your knee bolster, and then pull back on this panel over here to give you access to the bolt that's also held in on this side. This is the panel I'm talking about. We're going to want to remove this, and then in some cases it's a little easier to do so when you remove the 2 screws down here for the knee bolster to remove this panel, and then to remove this panel to give you access to the screw. The screw is actually hidden right back in here. All right, the next thing we're gonna do is remove this compartment right here. This is just held in with retaining clips. So move your passenger seat forward a little bit, move your driver's seat forward a little bit, and then basically give this a good tug, and this whole thing will come out. You could use your pry tool, your regular screwdriver, just to kind of get around the perimeter. And once you do that, it just lifts out of place. All right, now that this compartment is removed, you'll have access to 2 more screws that will be located here. Once you remove those screws, the center console will just lift up. All right, now that those 2 screws are removed, we're gonna wanna lift up on it and kind of pull it back. So you can notice here, there's now a gap up here. Because we took those 2 screws out, or bolts, we can now pull it back. All right, you notice I pulled the console away just enough so we can pull this bezel off. You don't need to completely remove this. You just need to pull it away just enough so you can actually just pop out the center bezel here. This just comes right off at this point. I just want to show you guys, now that it's kind of pulled back a little bit, this is where those bolts are going. It's coming from back behind here and going into here. If the camera can kind of see right here, there's 2 little metal nuts here. That's what you're screwing into it this way. So once you remove those 2 screws, it kind of makes everything possible. This was the step earlier. I just kind of wanted to give you guys a look at what it looks like once it's pulled back. You're basically unscrewing it back and then pulling that screw out so we can remove this. All right, we're ready now to remove the radio bezel or climate control panel. This just pops out. It's just held in with retaining clips. Once you pull it out, there'll be an 8-pin connector. You just unplug that and you can set this aside. We now have access to the 4 screws that hold in the radio. Now when you pull the radio out, you'll notice a series of connectors. These are FACRA connectors. Just push the tab in and pull them out, as well as the USB, the gray connector here. Now to remove the main radio connector, you're gonna press the tab in over here and lift up, and then the whole connector comes out. We can now remove this 8.4-inch radio. All right, now in some Vipers, it's required to install this extra module. This is gonna emulate a few signals that's necessary for the radio to work properly. In this particular vehicle, we need it. If you go to our website, it'll tell you which vehicles need it and which ones do not. So basically, it's just a pass-through harness. Plugs in on one end. We'll kind of tuck it back here. The other end just plugs in the back of the radio, just like the factory connector. Okay, so all the other connectors that were in the back of your other radio just plug in just the way they were. So in this particular case, we can plug those all in to the UAQ system. Now the module I just installed looks the way it does now. We are going to simplify it, so maybe later in the year you won't receive that, that exact module. You'll receive something similar and maybe not as overly complicated. But now that everything's plugged in and in its place, we could slide it back into the exact same location and install the 4 screws. Now we're going to reinstall everything the exact same way we took it apart. And then the very last step is installing a new replacement media hub. All right, now the last step here is to replace the USB media hub. Now you need to replace it because the media hub is not Android Auto and Apple CarPlay compatible. So we're going to pull this one out and we're going to install it with a replacement hub. This is a Mopar part. So basically there's 2 tabs on the top of this hub and 2 on the bottom from the inside here. So you're going to want to push down on those tabs as you're kind of prying it out. So as I mentioned, 2 on the top here, 2 on the bottom. Once you do that, pull this out and remove the 2 connectors. Now we have our 2 connectors. Now we need to interface it with the hub. So we actually designed a plug and play connector here. And then the USB actually plugs into the bottom port, like so. So we want to tuck all this wiring in. And slide it into place. All right, we can go ahead and install our rear compartment. Remember, it's just with retaining clips, so once you get them all lined up, it'll just pop back into place. All right, now that we have everything buttoned up and back in its place, we'll go ahead and start the vehicle. So right away, you see the cool new SRT badge show up. Now, something I want to point out to you guys, a lot of times this radio needs to configure itself to the BCM. So if you go to the radio icon here, if your SXM shows up right away, you're good to go. If it does not show up right away, you have to shut the vehicle off and let it sleep. That means shut the vehicle off, take your key fob, walk away from the vehicle, lock the doors, let it fully sleep for about 20 minutes to an hour. Come back in the vehicle, see if your SXM icon is visible. If it's not visible, then you're gonna let it sleep again. In some scenarios, when our radios configure itself to the vehicle's BCM, sometimes you need to let it sleep, sometimes overnight. So it's totally normal, it's just in the configuration mode. But as you can see in this particular case, it showed up right away. So right away, you see a nice, clean, dynamic video screen here, okay? Within the radio icon, you have AM, FM, with also HD radio. So after a few seconds, it'll buffer and it'll actually pull up the HD. SXM, obviously, is your SiriusXM. You get all of the different stations. Obviously, this is a subscription-based service. It does have the newer graphics for the stations, which is pretty cool. Within the media button here, just like before, it gives you access to Bluetooth streaming audio, aux, USB. You'll no longer be able to utilize SD, not that most of you did utilize it before. Within the climate section here, just like before, you can control all your climate right here through the touchscreen display or down here below. The apps feature shows you all the different apps that you may have had before. Those of you who want to add Sirius TravelLink, you will need to purchase an additional programmer. Those of you who have the non-NAV RA3 version, you will need a special programmer to enable TravelLink, which just basically gives you local fuel prices, sports scores, traffic, weather maps, stuff like that. Those of you who had the RA4 prior to installing this particular system, those of you just need to plug it in and it will work plug and play. Okay? Wi-Fi hotspot, those of you who had Send and Go, Uconnect access feature, by going to this system, this actually uses Sirius Guardian now, which is different than Uconnect access. As of right now, you cannot activate Sirius Guardian. Until further notice, check our website to see if maybe that is something that we figured out. But as of right now, Sirius Guardian is a completely different system, so those of you who utilize Uconnect access will no longer be able to do that. So we got that there. Navigation. Now this navigation here is really neat. Not only are you able to go to, just like before, recent addresses, points of interest, things like that, you now have a dynamic touchscreen. So you can pinch to zoom, you can turn. The maps are really, really cool. Obviously your voice guidance will come through the speakers, which is great. Just an awesome nav system here. 2D, 3D maps, so on and so forth. It's kind of got more of like an iPad or iPhone kind of touch and feel. So it's pretty cool. You will need to repair your phone. Just hit yes and follow the procedure in your phone to pair it to the new device. In the settings menu here, you can go through and change, different settings that you may need to. Most of you won't need a fool with it. One thing right off the bat, I want to set the theme to something a little bit different. There are different themes that will pop up here. It'll give you different options here to change the layout of the system itself. So pretty cool. All right, now what we've all been waiting for, how to integrate your smartphone to a factory system. You're gonna wanna plug your lightning cable into the USB port. Once you do that, plug it in the bottom of your phone. You'll notice CarPlay shows on your phone and CarPlay shows on your screen. So this is 100% factory Mopar, guys. This isn't an aftermarket kit. These parts are all factory, okay? So those of you who know how CarPlay works, that's great. Those of you who don't, this is an awesome safety feature in your vehicle. You go to make and receive phone calls. Those of you who have Apple Music can access your music through the music touch or icon. Apple Maps here, it'll take you to your destination. You can have previously stored destinations. These are all updated every day through Apple. Messages. As you're driving and you get a text message that comes in, it'll actually read to you what the person has sent to you, and you just press one button to respond to them. If I were to press this now, it would start reading all my messages. So that's really cool. The now playing soft key here, I'll explain here in a minute. Podcasts, those of you who love podcasts, be able to access that on the dime there. Audiobooks. Self-explanatory. Google Maps. Some of you say, I don't like Apple Maps, I like Google Maps. Well, you do get that here with Apple CarPlay. Okay? Awesome feature there. Some of you don't care for either of those. Some of you like Waze. Waze is awesome. This is now with the latest iPhone update, now fully compatible with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. So, I love Waze myself. SiriusXM, those of you who have the app on your phone, be able to utilize that through your app here. You go back to your favorites, browse, whatever the case may be for SiriusXM. Spotify, access all your playlists, everything right here on your touchscreen display. So just a really awesome feature here. If you press and hold this button here, cancel.
There's nothing to cancel.
That's how you activate Siri. So that's pretty cool there. Spotify does take a few seconds to load. That's why I didn't load there. But just a really cool feature here, guys. Apple CarPlay right here in a factory installed atmosphere, 2013 to 2017 Viper. As I mentioned, this is also Android Auto compatible as well. I won't do the demonstration on that. You could look on our website for a demonstration on how Android Auto works, but it's basically the same philosophy. So come check us out, guys. Infotainment.com. Thanks for watching.